This is your dose of daily market wisdom with master trader Nick Santiago. Starting from humble beginnings, Nick has been beating the markets for over 2 decades. He shares with you his take on the profitable trades that will have you moving towards financial freedom in no time at all. To see an in-depth review of his track record and much more, go to inthemoneystocks.com.
Welcome. This is your daily dose of daily market wisdom with master trader Nick Santiago. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is 7/22/21, and this is a milestone, show number 300. Well, what are the markets doing today? Because it looks like the PPT went into full-scale panic mode yesterday, Nick.
Well, you know, we had that Monday sell-off, and that was a doozy. That was on massive volume, and that's always a shot across the bow. That's a big warning sign. So I think every trader should be in caution mode at this stage of the game. Then all of a sudden on Tuesday, we had a big reversal. Yesterday, another follow-through session to the upside. And today, we're really just pausing a little bit. One thing I want to point out, though, is that the Russell 2000, which I use as a very good leading indicator, has been very, very weak. And that looked like it was about to break down, and all of a sudden, it resurrected like Lazarus, and it came back to life. And that's one index I would tell everybody to focus on, the Russell 2000, which represents 2,000 small cap companies in the United States. So right now that's holding up, but let that be your guide right now. And at least for me, it is.
So money is starting to rotate, and you're calling this a hot potato market?
I call it a hot potato market. We continue to see, money flow coming out of one particular area on one day. It goes into another area on another day. And, today you see, yesterday you had a bid in a lot of the energy stocks. Today, money's coming out of the energy stocks. It's going into technology. It's just one of those markets where you just seem to, on any given day, one industry group is hot, another one is weak, and they just keep rotating like that. And I continue to see that, over the period of the last several weeks, and maybe even a little bit longer than that. But that's how they keep these indexes up at these highs with all of the internal damage that's going on almost daily.
Yeah. So even though things look okay on the surface, they're really not.
No, I mean, the internals of this market are awful. They're probably some of the worst I could remember, if not the worst. And then you have just the amount of easy money that's flowing into the market. Obviously we talk about it all the time with the central bankers printing tons and tons of money. Our Federal Reserve here in the U.S. with printing $120 billion a month. That's unprecedented, especially when markets are at all-time highs. I mean, even the housing market, as high as it is, these guys are buying mortgage-backed securities. It's baffling, but this is what's taking place. I have no idea why, but they are afraid to let this market drop more than 1 or 2% at any point in time.
Yeah, well, guest I used to have on, Andy Hoffman, aka Ranting Andy Hoffman, used to always say, don't let it go red and don't let it go green when it came to precious metals. So Bitcoin, interesting tale of woe there. It was trading well under $30,000, 29 and change. And then Elon Musk, I think he got together with Jack Dorsey, and they were like rapping about the future of cryptocurrencies, and it goes back to like 32,000.
Yeah. So yesterday, we could talk about Tuesday, Bitcoin traded as low as 29,200. Now it's back up to around 32,100, 32,190. Elon Musk, obviously, and the rest of those guys out there, Dorsey and a few others, they got together, I guess, in this big powwow, and they talked about how he was buying some cryptos, Ethereum, maybe. I think that was his new one. But the chart is still terrible, and I think everybody should take note that the Bitcoin chart, if you're looking at Bitcoin futures, is below its 20-day, its 50-day, and its 200-day moving averages. And that is never a strong technical position. Now, it has not taken out that pivot low, which was made on the 22nd of June. So that's where it has a fighting chance. But if that low gets exceeded, I think on a weekly close, this is a slingshot down to 21,000. And I would be very, very cautious with the chart at the moment. But, it is living to fight another day. It is not a chart for me. Ultimately, I do believe we will see that 21,000. I don't know if it's this month or next, but it's going to get down there and satisfy that level. So I would be very, very careful with it.
Yeah, well, we've been calling this straight, from the peak straight down. The charts don't lie. We showed you the charts at 65.5, exactly a mirror image, except worse, of the peak in 2017 in December. So, the stars just lined up to bring it down. But Nick, I got to tell you, you may or may not believe in cryptos, kleptos, whatever, but I will tell you this, that it's just the beginning. We're going to see it come back again, probably break 100, and do this repeatedly over and over and over again. This is what I predicted 5-6 years ago when Bitcoin really started capturing the public's fancy, that you would see multiple peaks and crashes, and I don't know where it's heading, probably higher, but you're going to see these things happen over and over again. And it's like you said, the charts, it's human behavior. Human behavior never changes.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it works, and that's why I have to use charts. I'm not smart enough to figure out where they're going to go at any given point without charts. So I just watch the money flow. Is money flowing in? Then it can go up. Is money flowing out? Then it could go down. But, we said back in April, 65,000, you have to be out of your mind to be buying up there. This thing is parabolic, and we know what happens with all parabolic moves. They come back down pretty fast, and the velocity on the downside is pretty fast. So, if you were buyer in April at 65,000 and you loved it, I guess you love it down here at 30,000. But I'd be very, very, very careful. This is just a pause, a stall out just below the 50% retrace level. And generally something like this is going to retrace, basically 3/4 of the move. And that would take you down to, that 20,000 area.
Yeah. And it could retrace 85 or 90%. Once it goes over 80, though, it's probably going to be a buy.
Well, there's a chance. I mean, I've worked out levels on this, and I've actually put them on this program. We've talked about it. It's around 21, 22,000 next pit stop. And after that, probably takes you down to around 6,000 or 7,000.
Yeah, which would make a lot of sense, because that would be a 90%, little more than a 90% retracement, which is not unusual in these parabolic markets to see something like that. Hey, if you don't believe it, look what's happened to lumber, right? Perfect example of a parabolic market that totally been fried.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a case for copper too. Copper is another market that went straight up, and now it's had a pretty good pullback. I happen to think that these inflationary runs are not over. I think they're going to take some pauses, because everything does that. But when you deal with Bitcoin, you're dealing with weaker hands. See, when you deal with, say, lumber or copper or some major commodity, they actually have real uses. You need lumber, you need copper, you need oil, you need real commodities. You don't need Bitcoin. and the irony is the people that are getting into Bitcoin, these are not people that are normally, accustomed to trading these kind of moves. So they're buying into the narrative or the story of the day that's being sold to them by people like Elon Musk or somebody else. And, it's funny, because you get these billionaire hedge fund guys out there saying how Bitcoin's going to go to a million. Then all of a sudden, when it falls down to 30, they're pretty silent. We don't hear much from them.
Yeah, nowhere to be heard from, right?
But no, they're hiding under their desk.
Yeah, we see this over and over and over again. But typical. So I don't know 6,000, but certainly if it hits 10, you got to start thinking about it, being a buyer at that point.
Yeah, I tell everybody, if it gets down to 6,000 to 7,000 and it's still a viable asset class, that's where you give it a shot. I mean, I told my nephew that, but that was a perfect example of someone that wanted to buy Bitcoin, and it was sitting above 55,000. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" And here we are. It's at 30,000 now.
Yeah, here we are. So go figure. Hey, finally, precious metals, they're looking really weak now. Is this just a blip, or are we going to see more weakness?
Yeah, I don't love the action, and we talked about it on here, how the miners have been lagging the gold price, and that's still a no-no for me. I'd never like to see that. The gold miners in general still can continue to look like they have more downside. I would really avoid the group at the moment. I mean, I think it'll ultimately lead to another tremendous buying opportunity, but at the moment, I'm not seeing anything that really excites me here in the precious metals. Not to say that can't change or the chart can't change. change, but just using that little warning sign where the miners are weak, that would keep that alone just keeps me out.
All right. We'll leave it at that. So if you want to figure out how Nick does it, learn how he does it, how he's been beating the markets for over 20 years, go over to inthemoneystocks.com. The Twitter feeds at ITMS, at Nick Santiago01, at Kerry Lutz. Email kl@kerrylutz.com. We're going to do a show tomorrow on Friday. We will get to your questions. Nick, we'll talk to you then.
Thank you, Kerry. Have a great day.
And so concludes another episode of Daily Market Wisdom with Master Trader Nick Santiago. Be sure to go to his website, inthemoneystocks.com. Don't forget the Twitter feeds at ITMS and at Nick Santiago01.